our speaker today, Diana. She is from Eastern Europe. She lives in the UK and Australia. She has a lot of experiences in helping people build their businesses and startups. And Diana, would you mind telling us a bit more about yourself?
Hi, Dad, and hi, everyone. Welcome to this masterclass with Tasty Culture Bites. Thank you for joining us. And as Dad mentioned, this is a really a friendly and open conversation. So you're welcome to join in and ask questions. And I know some of you already pre-sent some of your questions, so that's great. So I'm Diana Goghova. I was born in Slovakia, and at 18 I moved to UK because I wanted to see the world and wanted to experience different cultures. And about 6 years ago, I moved to Australia through my career. And that's been really enjoyable, or to stay on topic, fulfilling. Currently, I work as a change consultant, and I also advise and work with startups and small businesses or individuals who are trying to run a business, but they don't know where to start or how to grow, scale it up. As probably most of you, I'm also a travel enthusiast. I love traveling and meeting different cultures and people, experience the history, the buildings, the everyday foods of people. I travel to 20 countries, and I like to think once COVID is over, I'll be able to travel to some more countries as well. As part of being a global citizen, I am a keen and very proactive volunteer with various organizations. One of the largest would be the State Emergency Services, which in Australia, every state has basically a structured organization, government body, where we're helping out local communities, and that includes when people go out on big long walks into the mountains or bush. If they get lost, then we go and try and find them, or in most cases we do find them and bring them back safely. I also, as Praful mentioned, I mentor students and young leaders, and I always did that through my previous work experiences as well, but also on the side through different universities or just individuals who I meet through networking. It's really something that in my younger years, I didn't have it, or didn't have it as a recognized setup to have a mentor or coach. So I'm really keen to give back in that area of people's life, and it's something I really enjoy. And outside of work and professional, I also mentioned that I do study part-time currently as an executive MBA. So that's a great opportunity for me to experience the multicultural setup of Australia, and also how businesses and organizations work. So beyond my professional and studying career, I am an absolute fanatic about healthy lifestyle and sports. And I've tried so many different sports, and I also still trying. But my current sports are, I'm an ocean canoe paddler, so outrigger canoeing. I'm also a four-wheel drive enthusiast, and I've done international racing on dragon boating, which probably a lot of you are familiar with in World Championships. I love yoga, climbing, sports climbing, and anything else. Yes, that's me on an ocean canoe racing. And I think if you go to the next slide as well, that's just a few of my outdoor activities. And that's really just to show that, again, when I move to a different country, I try and see what are the locals do, how to explore the country and be familiar with the local setup. So that's a picture of me paddling in Sydney Harbour. It doesn't get any more magical than that when you're based in Sydney and be so close to the harbour bridge. Yeah, so that's me. And I'm a forever learner. I enjoy learning, and that's why I enjoy meeting new people as well.
Thank you, Diana, for your very, very, very detailed introduction to everybody. So we can all agree that Diana, she is a very dynamic person. She has experiences in so many fields, and we're very lucky here today to have Diana share about her both professional and personal experiences. Okay, so let's get on to our main topics. Are you guys all ready? I guess I said yes. So today we're going to talk about how to find fulfillment in the unknown. But first of all, what is this? What is the fulfillment that we are talking about? What is the unknown? I understand we all feel so vague and ambiguous when we look into this title. But let's see. When we talk about the two words, the two keywords, fulfillment and the unknown, what are our perceptions of this? So Diana, what is your perception on the fulfillment? What does it mean?
Look, I think it's really simple, and I always try and find simple answers to life's or career questions, because then you can't get it wrong. So what's fulfillment for me is really feeling happy because I am doing what I intend to do and what I enjoy, whether that's life or something small on a granular basis. Now, to do that, I often set goals for myself, because otherwise you don't know what you're aiming for. So that's one of the key areas that I emphasize always in life, is to make sure that there are goal settings and they are quite specific. And I think we're going to touch base on that a little bit more towards the end.
All right.
And the unknown part is when we're talking global citizenship and embracing a new career, studying, moving to a new country, it can be really, daunting that you don't know what's waiting around the corner. You can't plan everything. To an extent you can, but then there's always something else that may happen in life. As we've just seen it recently in the past few months, the new norm is the unknown and the unpredictable. So really the two is actually quite contradictory if you put it together, because fulfillment is knowing and you find happiness in what you're doing and what you're supposed to do in life, and the unknown is you really don't know what's coming up, but yet you try and find the happiness in between those two and balance it out. So really where the two gets together is accepting the unknown, and the sooner you accept it, the quicker you can start enjoying life and embracing that unknown and succeed with it. And therefore it will result in fulfillment.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana, for your answer. So we can see that unknown and fulfillment, even though they are different, but in some ways they can go together if we try. We try to understand the unknown. And from TCB, we believe the first place to define the unknown is from ourselves. So we come to the first topic of today. The first topic is self-awareness and empathy, the unknown in ourselves. So we have a few questions from the audiences in the application forms and from TCB as well. So yeah, the first question of today for both Diana and the audience. Our participants, when you hear this question, please try to, if you have any idea, please try to answer in the chat box. Please feel free if you have any idea. And so the question is, what is self-awareness? What does it mean to us? And why is it important? Okay, let's, participants, please feel free to type in the chat box your ideas. What is self-awareness and what does it mean? So Diana, how do you think?
Well, self-awareness, it's one of the top buzzwords at the moment, and there are lots of articles that you can read about it. For example, if you go into the Harvard Business Review pages, lots of really interesting articles, and it really is understanding and be fully aware of ourselves, where what our values, beliefs, and living according to that. And by knowing that, again, it's linking back that everything we do can be then fulfilling and it's a bit more meaningful. the way we even communicating, it becomes a lot more effective. But of course, in order to do self-awareness, you do need to do some groundwork. Because that means you need to reflect, self-reflect, and that can come across often as self-criticism, or that you're looking at and picking apart your own life, which of course for a lot of people can become confrontational. So you really need to just take that time and be comfortable with it, because it's in the long run, it's for you to grow and to help you to serve your purpose and to enjoy life. So you can do that internal self-awareness, which is to look at it, how you react to things, how your thought processes work, how you're feeling and you behave. But then there is an external self-awareness where you understand how basically externally other people view you and perceive you. And that's really important for you to have that full picture, because that will guide your, again, your actions and your commitment and how effective you become in life.
Thank you, Diana, for your answer, very detailed answer. So self-awareness is how we do reflection. We reflect on ourselves, on our experiences, and see what can we learn from those. Okay, so I have a question for all the audiences. You can just type down in the chat box. So when was the last time you did your own self-reflection? When was the last time you did your own self-reflection? Okay, I would want to see your answers in the chat box.
And just to add to that whilst you're doing self-reflection, it's really important, as you highlighted, to not to look at it in a critical way, but as you say, is looking at what can you learn from it. So what if you made a mistake? That's okay, we all do that. But it's understanding whether what was the trigger, or well, how can I do it differently? And then to get a different reaction from other people, or feel better about it for yourself.
Thanks, Diana. Okay, we are seeing some answers from our audiences. So from Tao, she did this early morning, just today. Okay, so Tao, can we talk to you a little bit? Are you there? Hello. Maybe the mic is off, I guess. Okay, maybe we have some technical issues with that.
Hello.
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Hi.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. So So you said the last time you did it was this early morning. So how do you usually do it? Your self-reflection.
Okay. So actually, recently, I mean, last month I joined a kind of community, and we learned about self-reflection. And recently, one of the person in that community let me join a community for 21 days for abundance, and we would like do self-reflection in the every early morning. Yeah, so
Wow,
that's my experience.
Thank you for your answer. That's a beautiful thing to do every day. I wish I have the mental capacity to do that every day, just like you guys. Okay, so
I really like Matt's answer, if I can bring that up, because Matt is saying he reflects when he makes mistakes, but it's also valuable to self-reflect when you achieve success to learn how to maintain your successes. Very valid point. And it's also important that you celebrate those successes. So when we're talking about fulfillment in the unknown and planning, yes, it's important to have a 1, 3, 5-year plan, but make sure that in between you celebrate all the small successes. and you reflect on that, because once you see that, oh, that really made me feel good, then okay, what was that I did? Can I replicate that again?
That's a very important point right there that we just discussed, to celebrate the small things, even the small wins in our life.
Absolutely.
We have Prafula saying, during the COVID-19, his opportunities to reflect on his procrastination and achieving productivity. Wow, that's great. That's great.
I think everyone is procrastinated a lot during COVID, because we all thought it will be over in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we thought, let's just take that as a holiday. And in reality, when you start reading those articles about gain new skills, I learned a new language and all these free courses, and you think, why is it that I don't necessarily feel that motivation and I keep pushing things back? And it is natural. And this is extremely unprecedented and unknown times. And make sure that you're not too hard on yourself, because it does take a while to change and to accept it. And we all have a different journey, and every country's been affected differently. So again, just look at it and go, why am I procrastinating? Is it really that's worth spending time on? The activity that you keep putting off, is it going to bring me value? Or you're doing it because other people perhaps doing it and you feel bad? So really find what is interesting for you during this time and focus on that. Because those are the activities that will let you grow. It's not the activity that you basically hate doing. That's not going to make you grow. That's going to make you resent.
Thanks, Diana, for your answer. I really agree on this. Sometimes we like some kind of concept. We like that people are doing this. But when we actually do it, we don't quite enjoy it as much. And we feel, wow, why I'm not achieving this? Why I'm not succeeding like other people? But that's not the case. It just doesn't suit you. It's a matter of something else.
You can look at all the new video platforms or the social media platforms, and you see different people present themselves in a different way, and you think, oh, I really want to be like that famous influencer, for example. But if that's not you, if you don't like putting yourself out on the camera on several times a day, and that's okay, but you maybe have a different content that you can put out there, or you have a different way of being out in the community and being recognized, but without having to go through that social media avenue.
That is true. That is true, Diana. Thank you. Okay, we have a small question in the chat box right here. I think this is for you, Diana. So this is from Huen, and she asked, how many times do you find it reasonable to do self-reflection in a year? Okay, interesting.
Very specific question. Thanks, Jan. Look, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's trying and error and what suits you. I've got weeks where time goes past and I'm just floating along in life, let's say, just going along and not thinking about it. And there are times where I know a big decision or a big challenge is coming up, and then it's continuous. So probably I look at it more in that way, as opposed to allocating specific times at a specific period on regular basis. You can look at it that, ever so often when you know a new challenge is coming, for example, before you're going to start applying for a new job, then you need to start a lot more reflection. Okay, what do I enjoy doing? Why am I enjoying that? What I want out of the job, what the company culture you want it to be, what are your values, what you want to bring to an organization. So you would probably do a lot more. But once you start the job, you will do little checkpoints that, am I achieving that? But your focus is probably going to be getting on board and doing the job itself, because that will bring you those immediate results at that time.
Thank you, Diana, for your answer. So yes, we can try to reflect anytime you want, or maybe after the big events in our life, to see what
Correct.
have what in us, what have
Before
changed.
and after, absolutely.
Okay, so here's the thing. We've talked a lot about reflections, about the activities, but I do believe when we do reflection, we reflect on our relationship as well. So here's another question on the first topic of us. So how do we link self-awareness to empathy? Or in other words, why, when we understand ourselves, we have a better chance to understand the others? So what are your thoughts on this, Diana?
Yeah, it's a really good question. With empathy, really is putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding the journey they're going through and the experiences they're sharing with you, as opposed to sympathy, which is used more commonly and very often mistakenly. It's more on the side of acknowledging and just almost pity that experience. It can be almost seen like when you say sorry but you don't really mean it, or you say sorry because my actions had XYZ consequence. You know that person means it, and you know you truly mean it. So empathy is really one of the simplest way to relate to other people, but it's one of the hardest ones to master. And a lot of it, yes, it comes from self-reflection and self-awareness, because if you're aware the actions that you do and how that perceived in different cultures, different communities around the world, then you also become a lot more non-judgmental, open-minded, and willing to learn and listen from other people, and therefore, you know, open to having their stories shared and have that empathy.
Thank you, Diana, for your answer. So yeah, one thing for me, I usually think of this in this way. So I ask myself questions about how would I react to this and that? How did I react to these certain events, to these certain actions of somebody? And then I reflect on the other people as well. How did they react, and how different was that from me? And I say, yeah, we're different, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. The world is changing every day. They think like that today, maybe you change tomorrow. We never know. So it's okay to have differences.
That's right. And you know, in a global world where we travel, there is such a mix of cultures, and that's what makes it beautiful, the diversity of every country. But that also still comes with from culture, from history, from the social behaviors and expectations, everything that shapes someone's behavior. And then there are the personal journeys that everyone goes through, not knowing what's happening to the rest of the world. So it's really important to be open-minded and have that empathy to people.
Awesome. So everybody, Diana has actually prepared some key actions that we can do to achieve self-awareness and empathy. And here are those. Diana, can you elaborate on this?
Sure. Just got someone coming up on the screen. Okay. Look, they're just basic, really simple steps and actions that we can all take when it comes to the first topic. And we talked about self-awareness, self-reflection, is to really understand what are your personal beliefs and values and your attitude towards the outside world, because that will help you understand yourself and then guide yourself in the self-development. So learn in your own learning journeys. And I mentioned to you earlier that I never stop learning, because the moment I stop learning, I close my mind to the world and to people. So all of this will help you to understand the impact of your actions. And again, whether it's good or bad, it's there to learn from, and actually, you know, give you the opportunity to then change it. So with the empathy, see the world with other people's eyes. As I mentioned, we all have a journey. So you never know why someone's behavior is the way it is. And then define your success. So we mentioned about having a plan set, and we'll talk about SMART goals later on, which is really important to help you put a definition around how success looks like, because again, success is such an open word. We can all interpret it in a different way. And one other key area that I briefly touched based on as well, that it's really important to find yourself a mentor right from early age. And if you can do that, they bring a great value to your professional career as well as on a personal level. Because a mentor should be there to listen and empathize with what you're going through, but at the same time, speak from their experiences and unbiasedly share what did they do in the different situations to help you understand that actually they made mistakes, and then you can learn from either their mistakes or help you to shape your decisions.
Thank you, Diana, for sharing on the key actions. So let's remember of these key actions. I believe you have took note on this, my participants. And never forget, this is a key message from Diana, from Lawrence Bossidy, but I think this is a favorite quote Diana has put here for us. So self-awareness gives you the capacity to learn from your own mistakes, as well as your successes. It enables you to keep growing. So, and this brings us to the next point, the next topic of today. The part 2. Observe and embrace. We observe internationally, globally, locally, and we embrace. And let's talk more about this. So, Diana, can you share a bit with us on what were your experiences going abroad? The first time you travel abroad?
Oh, look, first time, I think ignorance is a bliss. You go into a country and you either are so passionate and so curious that you forget to look around and you just go in with your style, which is not always the best way. So often you do learn the hard way, which is why for me is really important. And it's one of my biggest life lessons is to observe and then obviously embrace what you see and what you're experiencing. So one of the good examples I would use when I moved to UK and when I started my career there in a large travel organization, that I was always so enthusiastic, wanted to jump in with my best ideas and basically enforce it on the people and teams. And I would just always be looked at and go, whoa, 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 what's going on? But of course, I completely ignore the English culture of, okay, taking time back, and whenever there is a big decision to be made, the first thing they need to do is sit down and have a cup of tea, and then we can discuss it. So I learned it the hard way, let's say, that sometimes just be open-minded and wait and listen to everyone else's feedback and concerns and the situation before you jumping in.
Wow, thank you, Diana. That was an interesting story on how your experiences in Britain, in England. So yeah, I'm in Japan as well, and I've learned many things the hard way, actually, because I'm from Vietnam and the culture is very much different from people in Japan. In Vietnam, we don't usually say thank you or sorry that frequently, but in Japan, whatever you do, I promise you, whatever you do, they will say thank you every minute. Everything you do, they will say thank you and they will say sorry to show appreciation.
That's right. In Japan, the social etiquette and, as you say, gratitude and politeness is extremely important. So if you come from a country where you're a bit more direct, and you will find it that people will look at you. And that was similar to me as an Eastern European. We have a fairly direct culture, if we may generalize about cultures a little bit. So going into England and just saying, right, we need to get on with this one because these are the consequences, and that's what's going to happen and that's extremely bad. And you need to be part of this team because you have the right skill set. It will become, it was confrontational. It's not the way to approach it.
Thank you, Diana. And we just have a very interesting question from the audience in the chat box right now. So this question is from Holly, and she asks, what is the most intriguing international exchange that you have had, Diana? Wow.
Most international exchange? I think Australia would have to be, because when I did UK, I was very young and naive. So I had no expectations. I just went for it. But once you have and set up your life and you have a comfortable career, comfortable surrounding, your network of friends, colleagues, industry, and then you move to another country, that's a lot more scary. And also seems to be, as you grow up and you grow older, you become more comfortable and you take less risk. So moving to another country seems like a huge risk. And that makes it obviously a lot more scary. But at the same time, being Australia compared to UK, and I'm a weather-driven person, I love warm weather, it was for me an absolute no-brainer. And obviously for the career move as well, I had a great opportunity within the company that I worked for at the time. And so those were my drivers, and really just looked at the values and say, okay, what do I want to achieve with it? What will this move mean to me? And yeah, after that, the decision was very clear.
Wow.
Does that answer
amazing answer. Yes, we surely hope Diana's answer match your expectation for your question, Holly. Okay, so yeah, we can agree that when we try to understand and to empathize with other cultures, we really have to be one of them, to be with the locals, to think their way. So firstly, we observe, how do they do? What do they think when they do that? And we try that out. And then we observe ourselves. How do we feel when we do their ways? Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? It depends, but we embrace that. So I have another question. Sorry, Diana, what you were saying?
No, I was just going to add to it that, and then embrace that local culture. So trying out new different things. And as a global citizen, we have a responsibility to be part of the local community, whether it's through volunteering or whether through our actions through sports or just being part of an industry network. It's embracing that new culture and that new country that you move into. So if you move from a university, then joining the local activities or start one. If there is one that you're interested in, start one. It will take time probably before it will be successful, but why not? What have you got to lose? It's very simple. Of course, it's not easy, as in scary when you think about it.
Thank you, Diana. So I have this amazing question, both for Diana and our participants today. So the question is, so currently, we are experiencing the global lockdown. Everybody is staying home. So after it is fine to go out, after everything is settled down, where would you like to move once travel is allowed? It is safe to travel around, and why? I'll put the question in the chat box. So basically, after COVID-19, where would you want to visit or maybe settle down in that place, and why is that country? So while people are typing their answers, so Diana, what are your thoughts?
My thought, wow, it's a good question and it's a tricky one. There's so many amazing places, and I always been fortunate to be able to travel for both for business and for pleasure, and of course have family, I think, in 4 or 5 different countries. So there's a lot of places to go to, but I think my next spot is one that I set my heart on, would be Hawaii. And the reason for that is because of the outrigger paddling. It's a really big and popular sports there, so I would love to go there and experience it the true local way.
The true local way. Thanks, Diana. We have an answer from Prafula. Probably up to the mountain for a hike to get out of the busy city and enjoy peaceful nature. Oh, beautiful. I would love to do the same thing as well. Any more answers? Okay, so for me, so currently I'm in Japan, so I would want to travel to a place that can change my assumption. Maybe I would want to go to India or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh even to meet the local people there, because I understand in my university there are friends from those countries, but they might be different from the local people in their countries. So I would like to visit to see what is it actually like. And I would like to visit Spain as well, because I'm learning Spanish a little bit recently, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and you make a really valid point. Each country, and the countries you mentioned especially, they are geographically very big as well. And it's very important that when we do meet people back through university, that we don't think that that one person defines the entire country and everybody is exactly the same, because we know that's not the case.
Okay, nice. So maybe if you're just typing, so let's say we move on to the next point. So just like the part 1, Diana has prepared the key actions that we can take to improve our observation and to help us easier embrace the things around us, the local cultures.
That's right.
So here are the key actions, and Diana's gonna show us what those are. So
Yeah,
Diana?
so the key actions about observing and embracing a new country or the unknown and finding the fulfillment is develop a bit of resilience. So as I mentioned to you, when you start a new group or you join a new community and country, not everything going to be smooth sailing. You will have setbacks and you will have a slow start in some things. So that's okay, just keep going. If you truly believe it and if it is within your values and beliefs that you are delivering something of a good service or product to people and to the community, then that will take a bit of time. And then find comfort in the uncomfortable. As we just mentioned, there are going to be times, and we are going through one of them, where nothing is known, nothing is familiar with, and everything seems to be uncomfortable. So the quicker we adopt it and embrace it and say, that's okay, let me just observe it, what is going on, and then embrace it. So change that negativeness of, oh, I'm uncomfortable, to say, okay, what opportunity can I take out of this? And one good example I use, that when we go tourist to different countries and we arrive to temple, majority of us never dressed in the right way to enter a temple. So the locals created an amazing opportunity out of that, because they sell the scarves and the blankets and clothing, t-shirts and trousers for the tourists to purchase at expensive price, to be able to go into the temple. So it just shows that in one way, as a global citizen who's interested in traveling, but you choose to ignore it, how the local culture is set up, and to how the locals pivot and made an amazing opportunity, business opportunity out of that. So this is how you can change something into a really positive opportunity. So when we talked about observing and empathizing with people as well, really 3 powerful words come to my mind, and they're not ones that are made up, but it's really important when you're talking with people and the locals is asking them questions, and then when they answer something, often it will be short and succinct. So something like, yes, I know, and or no, it's not like that. But that doesn't really give you an answer. So ask them, tell me more. They're very powerful 3 words, because that creates that space for people, that comfort zone to explain it to you in more detail. And as a consequence, we have our ears and eyes in proportion to our mouth. So when you do ask a question and you ask someone to tell you more, give them the chance to explain it and tell you more. So use your mouth in proportion with your ears and eyes. Listen and observe and speak less.
Thank you, Diana, for your profound sharings on the key actions. So yes, we have the key message here.
That's right. So change is the only constant, as we talked about in life. So the quicker we accept it and we start embracing it, the sooner we can succeed. So this is an adaptation from a Greek philosopher, Heracles. So again, it's not made by me. I am not that clever that will come up with all these original sayings, but it's extremely old, but it's still applicable, and even more so applicable nowadays.
Thank you, Diana. Yes, I do believe change is only constant in our lives. I have a quote from me myself, actually. I usually say, if it's not fine, and it's not done yet. So I usually brace my, if it's not fine, if it's not okay, and it's not done yet, there's still something to do.
That's a very simple way of putting it as well.
Yeah, and as Diana have said, we should always think of these words, tell me more. We lean in and ask the question. We become curious. And actually, when we have that kind of attitude towards the local cultures, we can bring magical things happen. And that brings us to the third point of today, empowering others. How do we empower others? And how do we do it? And why is it even important to our lives? So we have an interesting question here. There's a saying that empowering others is the job for extrovert people. Is it true? And what are your thoughts on this, Diana?
Interesting. Why would you say that? However, I can see where you're potentially coming from it. It's probably more likely because extrovert people tend to be a lot more comfortable about sharing their thoughts in front of others, and they be always the ones who first speak up in a meeting. So whether that's in a professional setup at work or whether at school. So that may come across as, oh, you know, that empowerment of talk up, there's a new project coming up and we need to achieve these targets. And I'm the extrovert and I'm really passionate about it. And I'm going to come in, as I mentioned before, gun blazing, and I'm going to empower you all to work. But that's not empowerment. Empowerment happens on very different levels. And it can be done by introverts or extroverts. It's just finding what works for different people. So as an extrovert, if you're going to do that to an introvert person in a large group of people in a meeting room, they're not going to like you for it because they probably prefer individual basis. But actually, I often find that introverts are very good at talking at large events, as opposed to smaller where they need to address everyone, but yet they are in a big group. So it's just finding what works, again, by observing the environment, the work culture, as well as the country that you're working in or studying in. You can find that right balance. And some of it is trial and error, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for your answer. So yes, I do agree that each person, we have different characteristics and we need to be approached in different ways. I personally have very meaningful experience on this. So I'm currently in my university in Japan, and I usually have to work in groups. And there was this member. She was always on time in the group. She was fine. She did her job. But the only thing is, during the meetings, she rarely talked. She generally expressed her ideas, and she always looked like she's sleepy. And at first, I really felt why she is not being that proactive for everybody. She needs to talk more. We are trying to help. I asked her questions, so she should be answering with power, with passions. But yeah, she didn't do as I thought. And I felt, wow, there's something wrong. And for the first time, I tried to ask her, um, I noticed that you are having some kind of sleepy kind of attitude in the meeting. And I would like to know why. Is there anything that I can help? I asked that, is there anything that I can help her with? And luckily, she shared honestly that she have been having insomnia. She was so stressed. She couldn't sleep at night. But she really tried her best to go to the class on time, to be in the meeting on time, not to make anybody sad. But she just didn't have the energy to talk with passions. She wanted to, but she just couldn't. She has so many stress, and well, the only thing I could do was to acknowledge that, and yeah, I really appreciate what she did for the group, because she really did her best in the group.
And that's right. So it's interesting how you mentioned that you've gone from starting to judge her because of the behavior, but then because you question her, you ask her, as opposed to just being judgmental, you got some answers and you understood that she's going through a journey that is making her behave that way. And whilst you can't always help, but even by listening, it helps that person and it helps you to understand and be approaching that person differently next time and be more understanding. So in a work situation, for example, or at school, you can look at it in a way of someone who is studying finance or works in a finance department, they're more likely be able to have a better relate to a conversation if you're providing them facts and figures, as opposed to if you're talking with someone who is talking about marketing, they more be emotionally driven of what the customer journey looks like, what the customers and the consumers would want on an emotional level. So again, just observe the dynamics of the team and try and address each of them. And if you can't do it in a team, then take them out individually. As you mentioned in your case, you address that person individually and they feel a lot more comfortable sharing what is happening in their life.
Thank you, Diana, for your sharings. And I have another question for you, Diana. So what are your experiences in empowering the people around you? And like, how can we empower others without being too confrontational?
Like it needs to be something they also want to do. So by taking time and asking them and getting them to tell you more, often they will share that they have these dreams and aspirations, but they don't know where to start or have to achieve it. So even just by talking between each other, you either have some answers to help them and help put a plan together, or you may have someone who you know who can help them. And you can say, hey, you want to set up a business and you need a video made and set up of all your social media that you don't feel comfortable. I know a really good friend called that who loves editing videos. Let me put you in touch with each other. You see, that's all it takes, and just little micro steps. And then, as I mentioned, you've got all those small wins, and all the small wins will add up to one great plan. So there are many ways of also empowering people, but I guess it's more for me the feeling that I get out of it when people come to me. I always be in a mothering nature. Always looked after people since I was young. I don't know why. It's just always been in me to nurture people. But I kind of, over the years, I changed that to say, okay, how can I use that, more of that mothering nature, nurturing, into empowering them and understanding how they can achieve better and great things and find fulfillment themselves. And that really gives me happiness when I see someone achieving things they never even dreamt of. So that's where I get a lot of my fulfillment in life.
Wow. That's a beautiful sharing, Diana. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I do believe those traits of you, of the nurturing characteristics, built you up as a consultant nowadays. So we have an interesting question in one of the application forms. This is from Vanang. She asked that, what is the difference between being the consultant for startups and being the consultant for potential employees? And if you have any examples.
Yes, so consultant to startup, or what was the other part?
Consultant for startups or consultant for potential employees?
Potential employees, okay. I think that, so it's an interesting question. When you're dealing with a startup, it's most likely to be someone who was an employee and now they're becoming the leader of an organization, but the organization is often 1 or 2, 3 people at the time of a startup when they're beginning. So there's a huge change in the mindset that is required to think from being an employee who works within a job description, and they generally don't focus on the big strategical decisions that's left for the top player. So they don't have those responsibilities. When you're with a startup and when you're running a startup, that mind shift have to change, and every decision relies on you, and therefore every decision's consequences. So whether that's good or bad, and that's why it's important to then again go in and be self-aware and reflect on your actions and all those wins and losses. So yeah, with startup is very different because yeah, you become the leader and everything depends on you. When you are an employee, you generally have that job description that you're working within. So does that answer your question? Feel free to elaborate.
Yeah, thank you, Diana, for the answer. I believe if Vanessa is here, she would be satisfied with your answer. I would summarize it as different positions have different needs. So we consult them in different ways. So as consultant, what we can do is to show them their different range of responsibilities in their job and how do they feel and how they cope with those responsibilities. Okay, so for the third part of empowering others, let's have Diana explain to us the key actions that we can take to achieve these skills.
Okay, so we kind of touched on it, but haven't directly mentioned about working with people and with your own strengths. It's really important that when you are talking with people and you're observing them at work, or for example, when you're working at a study group and a project, is to see where their strengths are. And strengths really, if you want to put a very simple definition, is activities that people enjoy doing and it energizes them, and therefore they're going to be really good at it and that becomes their strength. So it's important that when you're activating people is to understand those strengths and work around it, because that's how you're going to get fulfillment out of the goal or the project that you're working together, and that's how the person itself, the individual, will enjoy it. So sometimes to get there as well, or to achieve the goal, is having a look at what motivates them. So it's linked to the strengths, that understanding how they work and what motivates them. And one really simple way of looking at it is, what's in it for me? So for that person, what will motivate them, what's in it for them, what are the benefits they're going to get out of this. And once you understand that, then it's really easy to educate them and work towards that change of mindset. So, for example, going back into the startup example, that usually a startup will be people believing that a product or service will provide a greater good to the society or to the community, and that is why they're proceeding with it. That's why they're resilient to all the environmental effects and the industry knockbacks and setbacks. So, because if we understand what motivates them, then we can see why they're doing it and understand it. Now that works when you're an employee or where you are working together as students, and then you can relate to it, so therefore educate that person to have that change and shift in mindset. Courage, well, yeah, when it comes to empowering others, it really is linked to courage. Courage for yourself to feel that you can approach that person and you empower them, but it really is encouraging the person and giving them that little space to be courageous and go for those dreams, helping them to plan it out. Which links us to the goal setting, really, is you can have dreams, but until you start writing it down and defining how it looks, what time frame you're going to achieve it, and what is the success within that dream looks like, then really is going to stay a dream. So it's really important to have a structured goal setting.
And then we come to the key message, the last key message of today: empowering others to achieve things they did not think possible. Simon Sine. Diana, how do you find this meaningful to you?
Where I find this meaningful, as I mentioned to you, that part of my fulfillment in life and linking to the unknown is finding those little pockets of dreams and challenges for people where I can work with them and help them to achieve it that they never even thought it was possible. And often a dream shared and dream discussed becomes a very easy plan to be put together. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to share it and start planning it. And again, this message comes from Simon Sine, who is a very famous author and coach and public speaker.
Thank you, Diana. So we have come to the end of the last part of today, empowering others. Let's take a quick look through everything that we have gone through with each other. So first part, we talk about self-awareness and empathy. And from here, we learned that we got to accept ourselves. We accept our emotions. We recognize the way we react to the world. And we try to see the world with their eyes. And the best way to have this is to not do this alone, but have a friend, a mentor, somebody to help you with this. And this brings us to the second part: observe and embrace. When we understand ourselves, we can bring that question to understand other people and to ask the world, what is there for me? And we learn the three powerful words in this: tell me more. To be curious about other people. And by being just by asking these three powerful words, we can help people feel empowered. We empower the others. And this can bring magical things to our lives. And here's a quick takeaway that Diana wanted to share with us: the SMART goal. So Diana, what is this?
Look, we talked a lot about setting goals and making dreams happen. And one of best ways I find it over the years is, as I mentioned, is put out specific goals. And there is a little framework around it or structure that you can put your goals around and helps you to follow it really easily. And it's called SMART goal setting. And just SMART goals, the abbreviation stands for be very specific about the goal. As I mentioned, if you say, I want to go, for example, I want to go to the gym more. Well, what does that mean? More to me, someone who is 6 times a week at least active, or several times a day. Sometimes more means maybe once more, or maybe 10 times more. You don't know. So be specific. If you never go to the gym, then you set it out that I want to go 3 times, or even just 3 times exercises for 1 hour a week. That's very specific. You can understand, you cannot get that wrong, so therefore you can hold yourself accountable. So by being measurable is you're able to monitor the progress. So as I mentioned, if you're going to set going to a gym 3 times a week for 1 hour, that's very easy to measure. Then within that, you can also set the goals that, okay, how are you going to measure it? What is going to be the performance indicators? It's going to be 20 minutes running. It's going to be whatever you want. And it's exactly the same with studying. Break it down per pages or topics to say every 20 minutes, I will read this much, and then I will highlight the key parts of that reading. Achievable. We talked a lot about don't be too critical and harsh on yourself. Make it achievable goal, because if you already set yourself up with something that is unachievable, you're not going to succeed, and therefore you'll be resenting that goal. So be realistic. It's the next step. Be realistic and achievable. Okay, so can I achieve that in day-to-day activities with everything else around me? Yes, then that's a realistic goal, and yes, that's an achievable one. It would be no good for you setting, if you don't go to the gym, to say, I'm going to do 20 hours a week, because you're not going to achieve it. Now, that said, be a little bit challenging and aggressive to those goals, because otherwise, if you don't have what we call stretch goals, something that challenges you a little bit beyond your comfort zone, then again, it's not going to be an exciting one, and it probably you won't follow through it. So making sure that that goal is timely, and that is a little bit of a stretched one. Okay, so when you set that goal, whether it's studying or gym, whatever simple activity or complex, put a time frame to it, that I want to achieve this by X, Y, Z in 6 months' time from tomorrow when I start that goal. And then you can work backwards and break it down to any small detail. So that's SMART goals. It's a very quick and simple way of helping you put some structure around your goals, whether it to be in a professional work or study setting or on your personal life.
Thank you, Diana, for your very effective way of setting goals, the SMART goals. From my perception, one example of this is games. Why we enjoy games? Do you play Candy Crush every day? Do you play something on your smartphone every day, or maybe on your PC? Well, maybe that's because in those games, they give us very specific goals to do in the game, and it's fun. So now my question for all the audience here is, isn't it time to design your life as an interesting game you used to play as a main character? All right. So yeah, that would conclude everything that we have talked today. And if you want to get in touch with Diana, you can find her here in the link. She has a LinkedIn here. If you have LinkedIn, you can probably talk to her anytime that you want.
Yeah,
so I will give
and
you,
just to ask you, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, just drop me a line to say that we met through the Tasty Culture Bites Masterclass session. So then I know that how we met, and I can connect with you. Sorry, are there any last minute questions from anybody in the audience?
Well, if there's not, then yeah. Thank you all. We're TCB, and this is just one of our very many opportunities for you to learn. If you want to learn more soft skills, please contact us. And we also having TCB education for you to learn English for free. So if you want, you can join us in a free 1 hour English lessons, and you can contact us through Facebook, Instagram. Just find Tasty Culture Bites, and you can see it directly. Or you can click the links in the chat box that our members have shared in the chat. And yes, yeah, thank you for coming, everybody. That was enjoyable, truly enjoyable. And I really appreciate your participation wherever you are. Thank you very much. And before we leave, can we take a group picture? So if possible.
And I just want to also thank for everyone's participation and your questions and comments in the chat box. It's great to link up and meet you all. And thank you also for that, Gary and Matthew, for the TCB team for inviting me for this masterclass.
Thank you, Diana. It was truly our pleasure to have you here today to talk with us. Even though it was 1 hour, it felt like 15 minutes. We need more of that. Tell us more. Yeah.
Really, why not?
Okay. So may I ask everybody to turn on your camera if you're comfortable so we can take a picture all together? I'll give you 30 seconds to put your cameras on. Okay, let's take a picture together. Okay, so everybody's ready? Okay, so on the count of, I give people 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, smile. One more time, we say TCB, okay? 1, 2, 3, TCB. 1, 2, 3, TCB. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining today.
Fantastic. Thank you all. And
yes,
have
I do hope you guys can.
Or evening wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you are, please stay safe in the COVID. Stay safe, stay healthy and positive. Goodbye. See you soon in our next events.